जय गोपीजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। जय गोपीजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन। यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन। यमुनतीरावनचारी। राधमाधव कुञ्जबिहारी। जय राधमाधव कुञ्जबिहारी। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 28, Text 7. etair anyaiś pathibhir mano duṣṭam asat-patham buddhyā yuñjīta śanakair jita-prāṇo hi atandritaḥ etair anyaiś pathibhir mano duṣṭam asat-patham buddhyā yuñjīta śanakair jita-prāṇo hi atandritaḥ etair anyaiś pathibhir mano duṣṭam asat-patham buddhyā yuñjīta śanakair jita-prāṇo hi atandritaḥ. Please recite. Etair anyaiś pathibhir mano duṣṭam asat-patham buddhyā yuñjīta śanakair jita-prāṇo hi atandritaḥ. Mataji. Etair anyaiś pathibhir mano duṣṭam asat-patham buddhyā yuñjīta śanakair jita-prāṇo hi atandritaḥ. Word to word meaning. Etaiḥ, by these. Anyaiḥ, by other. Cha, and. Pathibhir, processes. Manaḥ, the mind. duṣṭam, contaminated. Asat-patham, on the path of material enjoyment. Buddhyā, by the intelligence. Yuñjīta, one must control. śanakair, gradually. Jita-prāṇa, the life air being fixed. He, indeed. Atandritaḥ, alert. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. By these processes or any other true process, one must control the contaminated, unbridled mind, which is always attracted by material enjoyment, and thus fix himself in thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Etair anyaiś. The general yogic process entails observing the rules and regulations, practicing the different sitting postures, concentrating the mind on the vital circulation of the air, and then thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his Vaikuntha pastimes. This is the general process of yoga. This same concentration can be achieved by other recommended processes, and therefore anyaiś, other methods, also can be applied. The essential point is that the mind which is contaminated by material attraction has to be bridled and concentrated on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It cannot be fixed on something void or impersonal. For this reason, so-called yoga practices of voidism and impersonalism are not recommended in any standard yoga shastras. The real yogi is the devotee because his mind is always concentrated on the pastimes of Lord Krishna. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is the topmost yoga system. Chant the Mangalachara. Om ajñānatimirandasya jñānanjanashalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine. Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate. Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvise Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate. Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari. Vrishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Haripriye. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya eva cha. Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jayat Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Take the blessings of all the assembled devotees here so that we can discuss on this transcendental subject matter. So, this section we are discussing on Lord Kapila's instructions to Mother Devahuti. It starts from the 25th chapter, where the Lord first describes about the glories of the devotional service. So first the Lord establishes the central subject matter of discussion is the devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And then the 26th chapter, and titled by Prabhupada as the fundamental principles of material nature, there it is brought out that in the creation the central principle is the Supreme Lord. Right from the beginning of the creation, the formation of elements, it's only by the glance and by the will of the Supreme Lord everything is coming into existence. And then the next chapter, 27th chapter, titled as Understanding Material Nature, is now how one is entangled in this material world and how he needs to be liberated from it. That is discussed. So first it is discussed about the glory of the bhakti, then came about how the Lord, even in the material world, some may think that okay, devotional service is there, but currently I am in this material world. What is there in this for me? Even within the material world, the Supreme Lord is the chief person and everything is going according to His will, and everything came into existence by His will. And then even the living entity who is acting, all his actions can either lead to more entanglement or it can lead to liberation. So how that happens is discussed before. Now in this chapter, the process of the Ashtanga Yoga system is discussed, mainly to bring the conditioned soul back to practicing the devotional life. Now, out of everything, the mind is the most difficult object to bring under the control. That's why in the purport, it's brought out that first Srila Prabhupada explains about the general yoga process. The previous 7 verses described about, the previous 6 verses described about what is the Ashtanga Yoga process. All the 8 aspects of the Ashtanga Yoga. First starts with Yama and Niyama, the principles, what you need to follow and what has to be followed and what has to be controlled. And then after following the basic principles, then comes the asanas. Asanas is the bodily postures so that one mind can be peaceful. And then when one perfected particular asanas, then come pranayama. Asanas is like the external bodily aspect that you are controlling. Pranayama is the internal life airs also you control. By that it is expected that the mind calms down and becomes peaceful. And pranayama after that is pratyahara. Pratyahara is withdrawing the senses from the sense objects completely. And then comes dharana, dhyana and samadhi. Dharana is bringing about all the material, bringing the mind from all the material objects back to the right object of worship. And dhyana is intensifying that focus. And then finally the stage of samadhi is one pointed attention in worshipping that personality. So this is the eightfold Ashtanga Yoga process that is mentioned. And after that, the same concentration can be achieved by other recommended processes. So this is one method of controlling the mind and bringing the mind to the object of the supreme object of worship, which is the Supreme Lord. But there are other recommended processes, as Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments on this verse, saying about the process of accepting vows and giving in charity. So like these processes which are all recommended in the scriptures. But through all these processes, what are we trying to do is coming to the central principle, as Prabhupada points us out here. The essential point is the mind which is contaminated by material attraction has to be bridled and concentrated on the Supreme Lord. So no matter which process one follows, this is the key point. The mind currently in the conditioned state is attracted to unwanted objects. It has to be brought back on the right object of worship, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So whether one accepts this eightfold Ashtanga process or one follows other processes of, as pointed out, such as accepting vows. Right now Chaturmas is going on, so people may take some vows of austerity, or they can give in charity to the qualified Brahmins, to the temple, to other places. Whatever actions one may do, then he has to remember that he's trying to get rid of his mind from getting attracted to objects of this material world. And the ultimate goal is to develop love and serve the Supreme Lord. We come across this in Bhagavad Gita also, in the Bhagavad Gita 6th chapter itself, the chapter entitled as Dhyana Yoga, that also extensively describes about the process of the Ashtanga Yoga. There we see that the Supreme Lord describing about the important aspect of the mind. The 5th verse describes about Uddharet atmana atmanam natmanam avasadayet. So the mind can be the cause of one's liberation, and it can be the cause of one's bondage in this world. And then the next immediate verse, the 6th verse, says Bandhuratma manastasya enatmaiva atmana jita anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruvat. So when the mind becomes one's own friend, then it will be the cause of one's liberation. But when he remains the enemy, is the cause of fall down for us. So the mind can act both ways. If it is uncontrolled, then it is our greatest enemy and it will be the cause of fall down. An uncontrolled mind always pulls us to the different anarthas. as Prabhupada points out in that verse, that whether it is lust, anger, greed, illusion, all these anarthas, if the mind is uncontrolled, it naturally pulls one in the conditioned state to these unwanted activities. Just like Arjuna asks Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, what is it that pulls a living entity even though he doesn't want? He's drawn by his lust. He's pulled down by his senses because of lust. So that's why then the mind has to be controlled. And we see that even when one practices devotional service, it's very important for a practicing sadhaka to pay attention onto how his mind is acting. Whether am I developing clear attachment to the spiritual objects, or am I just acting on the surface and maintaining secretly attachments to the material objects? If you are not careful, then even while practicing bhakti, one can be cheated. It happens to anybody practicing any aspect of the yoga. There is a story in this regard, that there is one sadhu who, after his old age, he left his family life and as a vanaprastha went to the forest, to the Himalayas, to perform tapasya. And when he went to perform tapasya, he was performing severe austerity, very nicely following the yoga process which is taught to him. But one day in the year, he would come out of his cave meditation to the nearby village, and he would come interact with people and then again go. So word spread, year by year he is doing that, word spread among the villagers. See, there is such a great sadhu who is performing tapasya, who is practicing spirituality. Only one day in a year he comes out. Then it created curiosity among the people, and all the people started coming to see him. So there used to be a huge assembly of people when the day he comes out from his tapasya to the village. And then he would see everybody and he would go back. And he was continuing like this. Every year people come and then they respect him. They offer him obeisances, they offer him garlands and perform worship to him like that. One year what happened is, there was some big festival in the village. So everybody got engaged there. And this guy was performing his tapasya whole year. He doesn't know about this. So this day he came and there was no villager. By the time he would come, there were already so many people waiting to see him. And this day he came and there was nobody. So he was shocked. Or maybe I came early in anticipation. He was waiting for some time. Still no sign of any villager coming. Maybe they are far coming, let me see. And then he climbed a tree nearby. And he was seeing, still he could not find anybody. So he started going, top the branch, new branch, and he was going to the top of the tree. And he was looking, still no sign of anybody. And in his anticipation, he didn't even realize that he already started climbing to the edge of the branch of the tree. And suddenly, the balance got out and he fell down. And he died because it was so tall tree. So this sadhu who is peacefully performing his tapasya, he got distracted by the name and fame that came when he visited one day. So all his tapasya he did a whole year, and then because of this one day of distraction for name, fame, prestige, has ruined. So unless the mind is controlled, then the process of yoga one follows will be useless. So that's why one has to be extremely careful that the mind is subdued or not. And so we can see in our own lives, we may come for the morning program, we may chant the holy name, but the question is, what are we doing in the other times? Are we really Krishna consciousness? Is it invoking us to remember Krishna always? Or are we attached to some other material activities and then just we are like any ordinary person, we are entangled by some or the other material activity. That's why even in this Ashtanga Yoga process mentioned, the first 6 stages are called Yoga Rurukshu, and the next 2 stages of Dhyana and Samadhi are called Yoga Ruda. So the first 6 stages helps one to bring the mind under control from the material objects. Because in this material world, a conditioned soul being entangled for many lifetimes, he is conditioned to gratify his senses. The senses, as soon as the sense objects are seen, they are drawn towards them. So how to bring such senses under control? Then the first 6 stages of the yoga process. For the devotee practicing devotional service, the similar thing is ordained through the process of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. We all know the principles of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti as given by Srila Rupa Goswami, the 64 principles. Instead of trying to first artificially take away the mind from material objects to voidness and then bring to positive aspect, it's a direct process. Bhakti is a direct process. First withdrawing the mind from material objects and concentrating on the spiritual object happens simultaneously, because we are focusing and dovetailing all the propensities of the senses by engaging them in the service of the Supreme Lord. So, initial stages, the engagement helps one to control the mind and to purify it. And once, when one is very fixed and when one can think about Krishna constantly, then one moves to a higher stage where one can focus on, from Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, he can come to a stage of Raganuga Sadhana or the Raga Bhakti. That's where when one can directly focus on the Supreme Lord, because he already has a natural attraction to Krishna, then that attraction becomes intensified and turns into bhava and prema, mellow and pure love. So, the controlling the mind is also an active aspect even for devotional service. That's why the principle of the essential principle that is described by Srila Rupa Goswami is, among all, for what is the essential principle of all the activities of a bhakta, is to always remember Krishna and to never forget him. So that's the parameter which decides whether my action is going in a positive direction or not. So whatever activity when we are performing in bhakti, is it helping me, inspiring me to remember Krishna more, or is it not? What happens when I am sitting idle? Am I forgetting Krishna and getting involved in, apparent mundane material activities? Or am I seeing everything, even apparently material activities, in connection with the Supreme Lord? So this kind of self-analysis is very important for a sadhaka. Unless we do that, there is no point in trying to, enter into the esoteric aspects of bhakti and artificially think that, I am advanced and now I can think of Krishna in his, pastimes in Vrindavan. Though one may try that, what happens is one may be titillated to hear all these esoteric pastimes because it's something new, fresh, and pleasing to the mind. But at the same time, because our mind is not purified, one tends to mix that with the materialistic conception. And as soon as the transcendental subject is mixed with the material conception, then there is no further progress in bhakti. When one sees the pastimes of Krishna, when one sees Krishna as an ordinary material person, and when one sees his transcendental pastimes as apparently material activities, then the whole purpose of the spiritual life gets lost. So that's the reason then the process of yoga or the process of jnana, which is being described in these chapters, is non-different from bhakti. There is a misconception, or people see that jnana or ashtanga yoga or karma separately from bhakti. When it is seen separately, then it is, material. But when one performing his activities, or he is developing knowledge, or he is performing ashtanga yoga with the single purpose of withdrawing the mind from material objects and focusing on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then it is also an aspect of bhakti. It's the beginning stages of bhakti always involves, developing knowledge and performing activities, purifying one's actions. So that's the reason then whichever, aspect we take within, whichever story we take within Bhagavatam, whichever teachings, here the teachings of Lord Kapila, though it is described as Sankhya Yoga, means understanding the elements of the body, gross and subtle body, and the soul proper, and the Supreme Lord. The whole purpose of all this analysis is to bring one to the understanding that one's constitutional position is to be the servant of the Supreme Lord, and that's why he needs to engage in his devotional service. That's why Srila Prabhupada ends this purport by saying that the real yogi is the devotee because his mind is always concentrated on the pastime of Lord Krishna. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is the topmost yoga system. So, it's because the process of Krishna consciousness very dynamically brings one's mind under control. Not only that, it very easily helps one to focus the mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the reason it is topmost yoga system. It's a very scientific thing. It's not just because of the sentiment. I worship Krishna, so Krishna is the God, and because I am practicing this process, it is topmost or supreme. It doesn't work like that. When you make a scientific analysis of the process of bhakti, it still stands out among all the processes that are mentioned in the Vedas. Because it not only deals with the tattva of, how to analyze the material elements and how to distinguish between matter and spirit, it also gives a scientific analysis of the emotions the soul has towards the Supreme Lord. So, we never see in this material world, any other place, there is a description, scientific description on how the emotion should flow. As soon as the topic of emotions come, it's one's own attachment. So if there is a debate going on and people are started discussing, this is good because of, it has this principles, and the other guy says, no, that is not good because my, object has better principles. And then at one point, when one is losing, it just brings out, I follow this because I like it. As soon as one brings to one's own emotions of likes and dislikes, and then that's where the debates should end. In today's world, we see people follow different paths, or they have different goals in life, and then most of them are, very ridiculous sometimes. People following, they apparently don't accept their own biological identity, and then if you question them, then what is their answer? Because I feel like it. I don't feel I'm biologically this gender or that. It's just a feeling. Now how do you contradict that? Nobody has any knowledge of the science of how the emotion should flow, how one should dovetail the emotions in which direction. So that's why in the modern world there is no solution to that. So whoever can promote their own emotions and forcefully to the other person, that kind of people rule the society. That's what is happening in the modern world. But bhakti is such a genuine process. The whole Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is the science of how one's emotions have to be brought from the material level to the transcendental level. And it doesn't end just bringing there. How one executes bhakti, and then he engages in his emotions in service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As described by Srila Guru Rupa Goswami, there are the 5 primary rasas of Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya and Madhurya Bhav. So, the definition of Shanta Bhakti, the main principle of Shanta Bhakti is complete detachment to the material, from the material world, and complete attachment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When one completely detaches oneself from any object of this material world and he has full attachment to Krishna, then he is a perfect Shanta Bhakta. So he is already at the level of prema. He has developed that love for Lord. And then from there, an active principle that gets added in Dasya Bhakti is that mamata. One feels that I belong to Krishna, or you can say that possessiveness towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I need to serve Him. He is my master. I need to do something to personally please Him. Shanta Bhakta also has great veneration and love for the Supreme Lord, but it is passive. When it becomes more, directed to the personality of Godhead, and one's identity is I belong to Krishna, then that's when it moves up to the dasya. And from there, another active principle, when it gets included, of Vishramba, that intimacy, then it becomes Sakhya. So the difference between a servant and a friend is the servant executes whatever the master wants, but the friend, being well-wisher, he also knows what is in the mind of the master. So then he understands the mind, so he does what the friend is willing to do. So similarly, the person in the level of Sakhya, then he executes the mission of the Lord according to his will. And then comes Vatsalya. Vatsalya, then the aspect of Poshana becomes very important. That when one sees that, without me, Krishna cannot be maintained. They see out of pure love, they see Krishna as, their own subordinate, and they have to maintain Krishna, otherwise then Krishna will not be protected. So I am the maintainer of Krishna. From Krishna, I belong to Krishna, it's like, no, Krishna belongs to me, I need to maintain and take care of him. And then the supreme aspect of the conjugal love, along with all these four aspects, then that complete surrender to whatever Krishna wants, they are ready to execute in whichever form. So there are no boundaries on what one should do, what one should not do. So that's why the conjugal rasa is seen as the topmost, and this is the analysis given in teachings of Lord Chaitanya, even Chaitanya Charitamrita by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, that how we can see very scientifically from one level to another level how one's attachment to Krishna gets increased more and more, and it becomes more dynamic. Though it is perfect, within the perfection lies more perfect and most perfect. So this science is not given anywhere. Before, in the Vedic fold, then there is Bharata Muni, who gave the Natya Shastra, and he is like the person who is describing about all the different rasas. But he discusses only the 8 rasas, out of which there is no all the 7 secondary rasas, and then the conjugal is described as Shringara rasa, that still has a material kind of disposition towards it. But whereas Srila Rupa Goswami very clearly shows that these 5 primary rasas are the ways where constitutionally the soul can relate with the Supreme Lord and associate. And the secondary rasas only help to enhance and create dynamism within the primary rasa, which one has direct relationship with the Lord. Whereas in the material world, one relates to each other only through the secondary rasas. The primary rasas are always subordinate. So no soul can relate with any other living entity in the direct primary rasa. Now this is very, very dynamic and very scientific way of describing the essence of life, which one is trying to develop relation and love with each other, but it doesn't happen, and the living entity is constantly frustrated in this material world because nowhere he hears this science as described by Srila Rupa Goswami. And that's the reason no other process can ever come close to the process of bhakti. And as mentioned by Srila Prabhupada, that's why Krishna consciousness is the topmost yoga system, as pointed out by Lord Krishna at the end of 6th chapter. Yoginam api sarvesham matkate nantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate omam same yuktatamo mata. Because he is constantly thinking of me always, he is the topmost of all yogis. And the whole goal of all the processes of yoga is to bring one to this level of constantly remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whereas the process of bhakti already starts with always meditating on the Lord. Every action, right in the morning, when we wake up, the whole interest in waking up early morning is to go, they have the darshan of the Lord and see Him nicely dressed and worshipped. And then we'll sit and discuss about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we go out to execute whatever activities as a service to Supreme Lord. So, instead of first trying to control the senses, purify them and go through a lengthy process and then come to a stage of trying to remember the Lord right in the beginning, then we are trying to dovetail all our activities to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's the way then bhakti becomes the most pleasing among all the processes. And that's how in the first verse of this chapter also, it said that when one can very easily advance, when one understands the essence of this yoga process, it's told by Lord Kapila Dev. So, whatever different aspects are highlighted in Bhagavatam, like here the Sankhya Yoga or in other places about the Jnana, is only to bring one to the realization to give up any unwanted attachments one has while practicing bhakti. Somebody may say, Prabhu, I am trying to practice bhakti, I am sitting, I am trying to chant, but my mind is so violent, it doesn't focus. What should I do? Then come to these chapters and see the connection of all this with bhakti. So, wherever the jnana or the yoga or other aspects of the karma is highlighted in the devotional scriptures, it is only to show one how to give up these material attachments and try to focus back on the pure devotional service. Hare Krishna. So, anybody has any comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna. First of all, thanks for such a beautiful, nice lecture. Your fundamentals are very clear, everything, and very simple way you explained everything very clearly. So one doubt was coming in my mind, as soul, two things are there. First, she is in full knowledge that she is servant of Krishna, and second, desire for enjoyment. So because of that desire of enjoyment, sent to this material world, and now gets this mind which is contaminated, again get contaminated and entangled. So I was trying to understand which is the cause actual, because soul has one desire to enjoy, and second the cause is this mind, because it's now contaminated and now because of that entangled, so which is the actual cause, just was trying to understand.
So the constitutional nature of the soul is Sat, Chit and Ananda. Ananda means the tendency to enjoy, tendency for being happy is the constitutional nature of the soul. The only or the root mistake or root sin, what you can say, the soul commits is what path he chooses for being happy. Whether he wants to be happy in association of Krishna under his subordination, or whether he wants to be happy independent of Krishna. So as long as he chooses the path of being subordinate to Krishna and being happy, everything flows well. But when the soul has chosen to be separate from Krishna, that's when all the complexity starts. So that is the root cause for your question. So that is the cause. But what happens later is, because he wants to enjoy separately from Krishna, it's not possible in the transcendental realm, because there is no opportunity. That's why Maya first binds him his true knowledge, the chit, and then he is thrown to the material world. That's why these two Shaktis of Avaranatmika first covers the soul's transcendental knowledge, and then Prakshepatmika Shakti throws him to the material world. Now once he is coming to the material world, because he has given up his true identity, then the false identity has to take over. So first you see that in the material world there is ego covering, and more ego adds, then it becomes mundane intelligence. You add more ego, then it becomes mundane mind, and then so on so forth starts the gross elements also. So generally the mind, intelligence and ego all together is also called as manas in the Vedic fold. So whether it is mind or mundane intellect or mundane ego, all what they are trying to do is trying to perpetuate your original desire to enjoy separately from Krishna. I want to enjoy separately from the Lord. Mind, the function of mind is likes and dislike. Oh, you can enjoy this way. Last time you enjoyed it, you liked it. So go for it. Oh, don't enjoy this. Last time you tried to enjoy this way and you failed. It gave you a very unpleasant feeling. So don't enjoy this way. So mind only chooses what he likes, what he dislikes. And when ego had already identified with the material world, then the intelligence, the discriminative power is only in how I can enjoy. So it only moves within the realm of the material world. So that's why then the mind keeps one entangled more and more and more. So that's why the first active principle and the first principle of sadhana bhakti is, among the 64 principles, what is the first principle? Accepting a spiritual master. Accepting a spiritual master means one is trying to subordinate oneself under a superior authority. So you are already diminishing your false ego and trying to see yourself as a servant of the Lord. Unless one make a dynamic endeavor in this regard, there will be no progress in the spiritual path. So, because otherwise how will you break the cycle? It becomes more and more strong. Clear?
Thank you. Totally satisfied.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you very much for the class. The understanding is that we need to purify ourselves through these various processes. How do we understand the pastimes with Putana, with Kubja? Because can we say that these are rare exceptions of Krishna's mercy and it's not in line with this?
Okay, so you mean to say they are not devotees, so they got highest perfection? Yeah?
They seem to have not bothered to purify themselves, but it just so happens that they are object of lust or hatred, happen to be Krishna. So is that the reason that they got purified?
Good. So let's go first in the case of Putana. Then if you have read some commentaries of Acharyas. Who was she in her previous life? She was the sister of Bali Maharaj. And when she saw Vaman Dev, a motherly feeling strongly arised in her heart. She is the sister of Bali Maharaj and she is the granddaughter of Prahlad Maharaj. So they were practicing bhakti. But because of the situation, how the Lord took away everything from Bali Maharaj, then she developed, hatred to Krishna. And that's why, in order to, nullify that, then she had to take birth as Putana, and then she tried to kill the Lord. But once that anartha is gone, then her natural affection to Krishna again evoked. And because of that, then previously being connected, she could perfect herself. And when it came to Kubja, we only see one side of Kubja, she got attracted to Krishna. But Kubja is also glorified as devotee. Putana was not glorified as devotee. Putana's situation is glorified to show Krishna's mercy. How merciful is Lord Krishna. He gave the position of mother in spiritual world to that lady who came to kill him. But Kubja is glorified as a devotee. But she is categorized as a Samanya Bhakta. Means anybody who has developed such attachment to the Lord. Why she is glorified? Because nobody else dared to come close to Krishna when he entered Mathura, because they are all fearful of Kamsa. But Kubja, knowing very well that she might be killed if she serves Krishna, she didn't care. She still went, served Krishna. But she didn't have the principle of Anushilana. She didn't know how to serve. She was serving Krishna in favorable way. No karma, no jnana. But the Anushilana aspect is missing. That's why then, slowly then she needs to also then learn how to serve Krishna, under the subordination of perfected souls. So she is at a very high level already. Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for your wonderful class. I have a doubt. We can dovetail all propensities like emotions. We can dovetail towards Krishna. But how can we dovetail our emotion, that is envy? How we can dovetail that?
Yeah, so as I said that we can dovetail all propensities, Mataji's question was how we can dovetail envy. So Acharya says envy is one anartha which we cannot use directly in the service of the Supreme Lord. So that's the reason then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always instructed us that one should wear the verse of Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanena Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari as garland, and and then humbly engage in the service of the Lord. So the point is, envy comes when we think ourselves as better than others. And the fundamental principle is we think, I am somebody very important, and why he is getting more fame and name compared to me. So the way is, we should not even bring to that level. If you say, okay, but now I am envious, what should we do? By service to the great souls, by service to Krishna, slowly that propensity will be reduced. But the principle of Trinadapi Sunichena, that Dainyata, is a very active principle even for the sadhaka and even at the stage of perfection, perfected soul. That is described by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Jaiva Dharma. Even when one is at the stage of pure love, the mood of being humble actually it acts as a catalyst. It increases dynamic, it enthuses one dynamically to love Krishna more. Because that is the constitutional position, our constitutional position, being the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the Supreme Lord. That's why Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Naham vipro na chanarapatir, nahi vaishyo na sudro, Naham varni na chagrihapatir, no vanasto yatirva. Kintu prodhyan nikila paramananda purna amritabdir, gopir bharatur padavakamalayora dasa 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 anadas. I don't want any other identity. I don't want even the identity of being a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra or Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyasi. Because any such identity, there may be a chance that I can identify with something material and becomes falsely proud. And that also causes envy to Krishna and other great souls. My only identity I wish is Gopir Bharatu, the maintainer of gopis, then at his lotus feet to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. So, when one follows this procedure, when one in a very proper right mood, then the envy goes away. But as such directly, you cannot be engaging envy in service. Hare Krishna. Time up, so we'll end here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premat.